Folks, it's Friday. Welcome into That Betting Show, May 10th, 2019. Your one-stop shop for all your sports betting needs. As usual, he's Teddy Savransky. Give him a follow on Twitter at Teddy_covers. I'm Donnie Simo, right side VP. Teddy, it's setting up. And if you're a mother out there, which I'm not a mother, you're not a mother, Mother's Day, 3 Game 7s could be on the horizon. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But let's get right into the hot topics of the day. The Sixers show up on home court, take a 15-point lead into the half, and cruise all the way through that game for a Game 6 winner. Joel Embiid, not really factoring much into the box score, but an amazing plus-minus. Sixers get the win. Sunday, Game 7, Raptors-Sixers.
Yeah, when you're plus 40 in the game, you had an impact on the floor. And while Embiid didn't put up the monster stats, certainly his presence energized the team. His defense was a difference maker in the third quarter when Toronto was trying to make their run. And frankly, it wasn't just Embiid. Ben Simmons was a monster last night, right from the get-go. The Ben Simmons that looked like an elite level point guard. Jimmy Butler with the huge night last night. And of course, Toronto didn't play well. They missed threes throughout the first half. They missed threes all game, but they fell behind missing threes. And now we got a fun Game 7 to talk about. We'll do that later in the show. But wire to wire for Sixer backers last night, the betting markets dead wrong on this one. All the money came for Toronto.
Hey, Teddy, how about the blowout last night? You're waiting to go in the fourth quarter. The Sixers go to the bench. The Raptors go to the bench. But we're still looking at that 211, 212 total. And 15 points get scored in the last 2 meaningless minutes there to push that game over the total. Always interesting as it goes down to the wire. The one thing I do want to ask you, Teddy, which I was impressed with last night, you knew the home crowd was going to juice up and energize the Philadelphia 76ers. They come out, they take the lead, but then Toronto makes that run, and the crowd's getting a little bit antsy. It was nice to see the Sixers answer. Jimmy Butler was fantastic in that first half, giving him the 15-point lead, pushing it back over to Toronto, which we know the Sixers haven't had that big, win streak, so to speak, a win streak of 1 out of the last 15 or 16 games into Toronto. I'm going to be interesting to see about the energy level that the Sixers bring. And one game that you bet last week that if we can just see Joel Embiid engaged and healthy, could be a different Sixers team, right?
Look, Philly has been the better team in this series when Embiid's been able to produce. Doing it Game 7 on the road at a playoff-tested Raptors team, not going to be easier, Philadelphia. Make no mistake about it. But with a healthy Embiid, I think we'll be live. Again, we'll break this one down in just a few minutes right here on That Betting Show.
Doubleheader last night in the NBA, Teddy. Blazers start slow but finish fast. They force Game 7, number 2 on Sunday as they stave off elimination with a 119-108 win. Lillard and McCollum combined for 62 points. And how about getting a little bit of bench help from Rodney Hood in his 25? Nikola Jokic once again has dominated itself, 29, 8, and 12. Game 7 set for Sunday. We don't have a time yet, or at least at the time I was punching up the script here, but it will take place on Sunday for Game 2 of 7, Teddy.
Yeah, it depends on whether the Warriors or the Rockets force a Game 7 tonight, and that'll determine if they have 3 Game 7s versus 2, and then they'll figure out the starting times. We'll know this after Game 6 tonight as to when this game's going to be on Sunday. All that being said, let's give the Blazers some credit. And we talked about it yesterday, how Denver had gone on the road and failed Game 6 in San Antonio. It was almost the same story here. This time it wasn't from the get-go. It was the second half when Lillard went nuts, but when Lillard and McCollum are both getting 30, the Nuggets are going to be in trouble. That was certainly the case last night. Worth noting, Damian Lillard has never played in a Game 7 before. Look at his first one. Of course, no one on the Nuggets has played a Game 7. That is a team where 4 of the 5 starters had never played a playoff game prior to this season.
Yeah, we're set up for that triple header. I hope it does take place. We'll talk about that a little bit later in the show. But how about some more history, Teddy? The day before, a nice afternoon matinee in Pittsburgh showed us Joey Gallo with his 100th home run before 100th single. And how about this one? Albert Pujols in the afternoon smacks a 415-foot blast to left field. That gives him his 2,000th RBI. There's only 3 people in Major League Baseball that have done that, Hank Aaron and A-Rod. So some pretty good context behind that. But the interesting stuff took place with the guy who caught the ball, Teddy, that says, you know what? I just like the baseball. Just going to take it home. No big deal.
Yeah, and that's a Detroit guy right there. No question about it. That's the funny thing about this story is here's a ball that's worth something. All right. 2,000 RBI. Hey, you can give it to Pujols. He'll give you something for it. You can give it to MLB. They'll give you something for it. You can put it on eBay. They'll get no. I just want the ball, man. Get me out of the stadium. The guy bolts and never got the ball authenticated. That's a funny story about the mentality of my former home state.
No, no surprise also, Teddy. Is it a gentleman who caught the ball, is in law school, so maybe, the barter system didn't work well. He knew what a good deal was and said, you know what? I'm going to take my ball and go home here. No big deal. We'll find out to see if he gets it authentic, which I don't think you can even authenticate it anymore once it leaves the stadium. But
Nope.
Let's see if cooler heads prevail and he gives it back. What do you think, Teddy? Any chance that he gives it back, or is this going on his mantle or to his brother, who he said is a big Cardinals fan?
Jeez. I mean, again, when you're talking about your average Joe, just like a pro, it's not always about dollars. It's about, what do I feel is the right thing to do? What's the right thing for me? What this guy's going to do? I don't know what he's going to do with the ball. Feels like a mantelpiece one for me.
Teddy, what are we going to do here about the Chicago Bears? Yes, another edition here of the 2019 season team preview. We're going Chicago Bears. 16-1 to win the 2019 championship, 7-1 to win the NFC. And also the Bears team total is 9.5, which means you got to get the double digits and replicate what you did last year. Breakthrough last year, though, Teddy. I was a year behind schedule. I thought the Chicago Bears would come out, have a good season. Maybe Mitchell Trubisky would impress. And, maybe the following year they would really take a look at winning the division and maybe making a playoff run. Did it last year to 12-4 number with their 2 first picks this year in the draft, which they didn't have a first or a second rounder. Went running back and also wide receiver to get some help. This defense is loaded, added Clinton Dix. But are we going to see one of those things, Teddy? Because we see it a lot in football, and football is made for regression because they're going to tilt the schedule a little bit against you the better you do the year before. 12-4 this year, 9.5 as a team total. What can we look at from the Bears in 2019?
Well, we always start with the stats from last year. And again, I don't care about the mainstream stats. When you see something on ESPN, they're the number 1 rushing team, it's bullshit. Throw it away. It's about yards per play, yards per rush, yards per reception. It's about your team's quarterback rating versus your opponent's quarterback rating. Make sure you're paying attention to statistics that matter from a year ago to get your base power rating of the team going into the offseason. Last year, Bears outgained their opponents by 0.6 yards per play on every snap. They outgained their opponents by 0.3 yards per rush on every snap. QB rating, Trubisky and company, 95.4. Opposing teams just 72.9. No other team in the NFL held opposing quarterbacks to a QB rating of below 80, except for the Bears. So they literally lapped the league. And of course, they were plus 12 in turnover margin. So the statistical profile last year, pretty darn good, except when you look at the one factor. And in my mind, this is the number 1 factor for the Chicago Bears in 2019. Last year, they faced the single easiest schedule in the NFL. Make no mistake about it. You look at the win totals, you look at how the teams did, the Bears had an easy schedule, start to finish. 2019, not so much. They're one of the 5 toughest schedules in the NFL based on 2019 win totals. Again, don't look at last year's record to get you how tough the schedule is. Look at this year's win totals. That will give you a much better predictive element to figure out how tough a team's schedule is. And based on this year's win totals, the Bears' schedule is downright brutal. The differential between last year and this year, by far the biggest in the NFL. So beating up on weaklings last year, this year, not going to be so easy. And, look, Clinton Dix is a monster. Yeah, he has the potential to be a monster. But the defense certainly looks loaded. They lost Vic Fangio. Okay, Fangio is as good a defensive mind as there is, period, in the world. I mean, I don't know if he gets that credit, but we saw it in San Francisco. We saw it with Stanford. We saw it with Chicago, where defenses that looked pretty good ended up being great. Well, now he's the Broncos head coach. And we like Chuck Pagano, but that's a loss. One last factor to talk about, and we have to talk about it. Kickers. How many games are the Bears going to lose this year because they missed a game-winning field goal? I'll put the over-under at 1.5, and I'm not betting under. You know it's happening. Bears fans know it's happening. There's already chaos in the kicking department. They haven't even started training camp yet. Yeah, you're not going to catch me with the Bears over ticket in my pocket for 2019. This is a team likely to go under their season win total.
Yeah, we'll take a look there. You're right about kicking there, Teddy. One thing they were really precise with was hitting the upright. We'll see if they can improve on that this year. Chicago Bears look in a tough division there. You got the Detroit Lions, obviously probably going to bring up the rear there, but you're going to be fighting it out. As long as you have a healthy Aaron Rodgers, the Packers are going to be hell to deal with, and then we'll see if the Vikings can get their quarterback situation figured out. But also good point there on Fangio leaving, because it's not so much that the defense is fantastic and will continue. Look, you got to be a play caller in game day. Fangio dialed up blitzes and dialed up some schemes that really worked well. We'll see if that folds over to next year. Segment number 2, Overnight Line. movers. We'll shift it over to Major League Baseball. SBRodds.com, the single best place to check in and get those odds changes and market movements. The Angels seeing early action here, Teddy, on Friday. If I take a look right here at SBRodds.com, opened up around 150, 155 in that range. Now seeing some lines peak above minus 182. But here's the interesting part, Teddy. We're not in Colorado. The line opened for the total at 10 and now sits at 11. Cahill versus Straley. Not a lot of defense looks like come to play here today.
Yeah, the markets certainly don't trust either one of these starting pitchers, but in particular, they don't trust Jan Straley, who is, again, when you're the fifth starter, a tired retread on a last place team, as MLB starters, you're about as bottom of the barrel as it gets. And Straley, a fly baller who doesn't get strikeouts. It's a Baltimore team. They just struck out 22 times against Boston in their last game on Wednesday. It's an Orioles team. Remember, they started the season 4-1. What are they since that? They're like 9-23 since. And Cahill's got a good track record against Baltimore for what it's worth, although his advanced metric numbers are pretty ugly, and his last 4 starts have been ugly, hence the over money, hence the Angels money. Worth noting, Ohtani back in the Angels lineup, and he had an impact. A couple of hits in the series finale in Detroit. The markets view him as a major addition for LA offensively.
Teddy, everybody seems to get healthy and happy against those Marlins. We'll see if the Mets can certainly return that favor. Wheeler and their backers sending it north of 180 for the Mets out here with a total of 7. Lopez versus Wheeler, but it's not so much at Wheeler, 97, 98, 99 on the gun. It's getting the Marlins actually hit the baseball and put up some runs to challenge the Mets in the series. We'll see what happens today.
Yeah, the Marlins have lost 10 of their last 12, but the talk out of camp is, well, we're more competitive over the last week. They're losing games by only 1 or 2 runs instead of 8 or 10 runs. But we are talking about a team with the worst record in the majors. As I mentioned, 2-10 their last 12 ball games. They're going against an ace, and they're facing a Mets team. Look, the Mets have been lousy. They had an awful road trip. They scored 3 runs or less in 7 of the last 8 games. Mickey Callaway, we have to do better. What we're doing right now is just not acceptable. We can't all of a sudden score a few runs one game and everything's okay. We've got to continue to do it. There's a sense of urgency, perhaps, for the Mets in this ballgame. And the market certainly like Wheeler's track record against Miami, 5-2, with an ERA of $1.89 in 11 previous starts against them.
Late night action on the West Coast tonight. Rising total in the Bay Area, Teddy. We got Castillo and Rodriguez on the mound. Giants getting about a plus 128 here. Total opened up at 7, now sits at 7.5. And hey, look, we know what Castillo can do. We'll see if Rodriguez can match him pitch for pitch in this one. Always a tough hitter's ballpark, but interesting to see the rise from 7 to 7.5 here on a Friday.
Yeah, I'm very surprised to see any game with Luis Castillo in it getting bet over. His xFIP's above 3, even though his ERA is below 2, so the markets are expecting some regression. But when you talk about advanced metric stats that the betting markets love, he's got the Luis Severino factor. Remember what Severino did last year? Where he just dominated the first half of the season. Castillo, the ground ball rate above 55% and more than 10 strikeouts per 9 inning. You're looking for a duo that the betting markets love. It's guys with a high ground ball rate and guys who strike batters out. Castillo's got both. But the winds are blowing out to left field and the markets are not high on Derek Rodriguez at all. I think that's why we've seen the over money coming in San Francisco in early betting action today.
Watch what you bet right here on That Betting Show, Teddy. We're going to have a game tonight, Game 6 that we're going to preview, but we're also going to cheat because it's Friday and we're allowed to, and take a look at some possible games that are going to take place over the weekend. No Durant, line rising, Warriors being written off. Teddy, we're gamblers here. So, hey, maybe Houston can win, but the question of the day is, can Houston win and cover? -7.5, total of 214.5, money line split plus 275, -313. We know Durant's not going to play in Game 6 and already written off for a possible Game 7 if it does take place. The Warriors are 39-53 against the number on the season. The Rockets 47-42 at home. Just seeing from all the pundits out here, from through Twitter, through social media, it's almost like we're already anticipating a Game 7, but not so fast. Warriors got some good players over there, Teddy.
Yeah, and this line is a head scratcher for me. And I understand the concept. All right. Here's a Rockets team playing their do or die game against a Warrior squad that looks a little bit vulnerable without Kevin Durant. And Golden State, in terms of the minutes played in this series, they've been tough minutes. They've been deep minutes because the bench hasn't stepped up. So the markets are saying this is a tired Warriors team. They're not just banged up. They're also tired. At the same time, we've seen the same thing happen at least 4 of the 5 games. And Houston's been a point spread machine in this series. 4-1 against a number. The only time they didn't cover was by a half point in game 2 when they lost by 6 as 5.5-point dogs. That's the only non-cover all series for the Rockets. But it's also a series where every game's been competitive. Now Houston's laying 7. And we've seen this Rockets team not once, not twice. We saw it again in game 5. They had a chance. Golden State was not on fire down the stretch. Golden State did not hit every shot. I know Green hit the big 3 and Thompson hit the big 3, and they hit some shots. But game on the line, Houston was unable to execute with strong offensive possessions. We had missed 3 throws from Paul, missed 3 throws from Harden. They haven't been able to put their foot down on Golden State in any game. And in order to cover 7, you got to put your foot down on somebody, especially a tough team like the Warriors. So I've had the Rockets in all 5 games. I did not bet Houston. I didn't take Golden State. If I was going to do anything in this game, I would look at the under. We saw a defensive slog in game 5. The pace has gone down. Everybody knows what the opposing team wants to do at this stage of the series. Not many clean looks and a lot of tired legs. Gut reaction here. And we've seen a little bit of over money today. Fair bit of over money. I mean, this total opened as low as 210. You know, 212 was the prevailing market opener. Now we're looking at 214, 214 and a half. I think that might be a little bit high for a series that has lost its pace.
And also, Teddy, when you take a look at this series yesterday, we knew the Kevin Durant MRI information was coming, but if you read the tea leaves there with the calf strains, probably a good chance that he wasn't going to be available for 6 or even game 7. Those plus 210s, plus 215s, plus 220 series price for the Rockets were still out there. Once that MRI came down, money came in, Teddy. Now you're hard-pressed to find something around that plus 150, plus 145 range. So we'll keep it interesting there. I do have a small ticket in my pocket for the Rockets, so I will be rooting for them tonight in order to force a game 7, but it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. Game 7 in the North. We watched it last night, game 6 in Philadelphia, forcing that game 7. Raptors early line, Teddy, favored by 6, total of 209. Money line split plus 225, minus 265. This game is going to take place on Sunday. It is Sunday evening at 7 o'clock. Good for me. Get to go out to brunch with the wife and with the mother-in-law and all that stuff and have a little bit of fun. Be home in time for this game. Sixers 45-48 against the number on the season. The Raptors 44-47. As we talked about it previously, Teddy, Sixers struggles in Toronto, but the game can be completely different. Let's not forget, at least half these games in the series, Joel Embiid hasn't been right. If you can catch him on Sunday where he's healthy and ready to go, heck, plus 40 last night, and he didn't even score the basketball that much. It's going to be an interesting game on Sunday, and one that I'm going to look forward to.
Yeah, it should be a lot of fun to watch. Hopefully, a lot of fun to bet on, depending, of course, on which side you're going to have in this one. And we talk about what happened last night. It was almost the actual reverse of what happened game 5. Game 5 in Toronto, basically every Raptor played well. I mean, they were as deep. They looked every bit as deep as they did in the regular season. They got contributions from up and down the roster. It wasn't just Kawhi. And for the Sixers, everyone played lousy. And last night it was the exact opposite. We saw Ben Simmons with a huge game. We saw Joel Embiid, the plus 40, despite the fact that he wasn't a enormous impact player on the offensive end. Jimmy Butler had a big game last night. And even with Tobias Harris not shooting well, they got the bench production. I mean, it was as well as Philly could play. Ben Simmons, it was amazing focus. Everyone was locked in. We knew what was at stake. Embiid, I knew I had to come in with high spirits. If I've got to play 45 minutes and push myself out there, that's what I'll do. All that being said, now you got to do it again. You got to do it in Toronto. You got to do it in a place where you haven't had a whole lot of success. And you have to do it against a Raptors team that I'm confident Toronto's going to play better than they did in Game 7 they did in Game 6. The question is, in this series, when Embiid's been healthy, Philly's been the better of these two teams, period. Is Embiid going to be at 100%? Is he going to be close to 100%? And can Toronto solve their shooting woes? Because, they missed threes. That was the difference in game. That was one of the differences in Game 6, was they missed a bunch of threes. They only had 3 of them in the first half, and by second half, it was garbage time. They didn't get out in the transition, only scored 4 fast break points before halftime when we're trailing by margin. These are things that the Raptors are capable of doing better. And, of course, Toronto is the team that's been in these spots before. Philly, not so much. So that's another advantage, Raptors. And when you talk about the long-term history of Game 7s, pretty good for the home team. You better have a darn good reason if you're taking the dog plus the points on the road in Game 7. Although a pretty good reason could legitimately be Philly's a better team when Embiid is healthy. And Embiid, in theory, is supposed to be healthy for Sunday.
Yep, we'll take a look at that last game there. It seems like the forgotten series, though, Teddy. The Trailblazers and the Nuggets. And you want to know why? Sixers go to Game 7. Yep, playing them right at 7 o'clock. And then you look at this series and you say, I'm looking for the times. We don't really have one yet because, we're waiting on maybe a little bit bigger series out there, the NBA says, with the Rockets and the Warriors. But Nuggets are favored by 5.5. Going to be an elevation. Total of 212. Moneyline split plus 195. Minus 225 from the Pepsi Center. The Blazers, 50-43 on the season against the number. The Nuggets, 49-46. And as you brought up, heavy advantage if you have Game 7 at home. Even nicer little advantage to have it at elevation for him, Teddy. Let's see what happens here.
Sure. And again, when you look at the quotes, coming out of last night, and this is, of course, and I'm going to start with Damian Lillard. I think over the course of the series, at least after Game 1, I just haven't seen the ball go in consistently enough. My job is stay aggressive, keep doing what I do. And tonight, shots fell. Of course, Lillard, at 32 last night. McCollum had 30. That's what Portland needs to do. Lillard talking about he hasn't played a Game 7 in his career. It's basically a game where only one team is going to make it out. It's your last opportunity to play. So facing elimination is what it is to me. And that's going to be my approach, just like it was tonight. The only thing is that it's going to be on the road for our season. It's all the marbles. Quotes for Denver, Jamal Murray. We'll go back home, regroup, like we did for San Antonio, come back with energy, and just be ready to play. I don't know if that's going to be enough for Denver. This has been a wild series where no team has ever had a legitimate, significant edge. And, we saw the backcourt play well. And that's been the series. When Lillard and McCollum are hitting, Denver's in trouble. When Denver's been able to defend that duo effectively, Portland's been in trouble. I like the quote from Enes Kanter. We don't quit. That's one thing, we don't quit. We lost Game 5 by 26 points? We know we're capable of winning there. We can beat that team. That's a bet on quote. Portland's the team with the playoff experience, but Denver's the team who we trust on defense, and Denver's the team who won a Game 7 at home in the first round against the Spurs. This one should be fun, and frankly, I have no idea how to bet it. I will likely be passing Nuggets and Blazers given the current market conditions.
So we're not passing on Teddy's this Sunday that we're going to anticipate right here. Off the mic section, Mother's Day, possible triple header. And how about this statistic, Teddy, that we've been alluding to? The NBA has had 133 Game 7s with the home team 105 and 28 straight up against the number. So whether my Sixers cover or not to get a winning ticket is one thing. But whether they win the game outright looks like it might be possibly another. The one thing I wanted to ask you here, Teddy, because I don't have anything up and haven't seen anything yet, taking a look at maybe the advanced Game 7 line for the Golden State Warriors now that Durant is out, what that possibly would be. And also the overall winner of all these Game 7s is the Milwaukee Bucks sitting at home with their mothers, relaxing and resting up here.
Yeah, I wouldn't anticipate if the Rockets win Game 6 by 50 or if they win Game 6 by 1. I wouldn't anticipate a line. I'm thinking 4.5 for Game 7 without Durant. And that's just a gut ballpark reaction. That's my guess. So have you seen a look ahead for that? I hadn't seen one.
I haven't. That's what I was asking you, just what you thought it might be. I haven't seen a look ahead.
My ballpark is 4.5 there. Although it's a game, Game 7 at home, it might be a little bit high. My gut is 4.5, given the markets. But you nailed it when you said who's winning this. The Bucks right now are getting more advantage than anyone. Sitting at home, even they come out and have a Game 1 clunker. Like they did after an extended layoff following the first series. The lack of wear and tear on the Bucks' key guys is going to matter down the stretch. Whether they face Toronto, whether they face Philly, whether they face Golden State, whether they face Houston or Denver or Portland, doesn't matter. When you're fresher, that's a big edge, especially as these series progresses. So I'm with you on the Bucks. Unfortunately, the future markets are loaded with Milwaukee money anyway, so there's not any great way to get at the Bucks. Plus 260 doesn't interest me in Milwaukee to win the title. Not at this stage of the campaign. It's not the number I'm looking for. And frankly, I think Milwaukee, that might be a real number, but it's not a good positive expectation betting number. Hence, my difficulty betting future markets for this NBA postseason when it comes to who's going to win it all.
Can't wait to talk about that on Monday, Teddy, right here on That Betting Show. Thanks for tuning in May 10th, 2019. Take your mother out. Treat her right this weekend. You should be able to get that good karma maybe for some of those bets a little bit later on. This was your one-stop shop for all your sports betting needs as usual. He's Teddy Savransky. Give him a follow on Twitter at Teddy_covers. I'm Donnie Seymour, Right Side VP. Enjoy the weekend. We'll be back Monday and hopefully be able to review all 3 of those Game 7s. Take care and cash in those tickets, folks.